giving you the real from A to Z surrounding the Dallas Cowboys. News, updates, rumors, transactions, takes, and more. So strap up, Cowboys Nation, and start your day off with A to Z Sports. Live with Will Steele.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Good morning, good people. Welcome to A to Z Sports Live. We are streaming live on YouTube. And of course, I am your host, Will Skywalker. Still. Boom. Come on in, Cowboys Nation. Welcome to our Fan Friday edition of the show. We're going to go inside this Zack Martin out for the season injury news and cover from all angles with our guy Patrick Nosey Walker, our resident insider. Plus, we got some mailbag questions for you. Some good questions, about 3 of them to answer with you guys. We'll have a little fun with that. But y'all know how we do on Friday, man. Y'all know what it is. We bring this thing in with some energy, and we get right into the business with our guy Patrick Nosey Walker on this week's version of the Scientific Method. As my guy T-Dub would say, yeet. What's good with you, bro?
So, Steele and all the A to Z Sports listeners, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, you know exactly what they want to talk about, man. And I said this on Twitter, man. I hate that it has to be this way for our guy Zack Martin. But let's just jump right into it, Pat. You had a chance to speak with him. I heard a couple of your questions yesterday inside the locker room. I was actually surprised, to be honest, that Zack Martin decided to speak with you guys right then and there. But he did, and you could tell it sucks for him, and he hates this. But kind of your reflection on that sit down with Zack Martin and just the injury and his career in general.
Well, it's been an emotional last few days for the future Hall of Famer, because not only this week did he get news that he was the Cowboys nominee for Walter Payton Man of the Year, which is just a sensational, unbelievably humbling honor. But in that same time span, he gets the news from athletic trainer Britt Brown that it's in his best course of action to shut himself down for the season so that he can get surgery on his right ankle, because it's not responding to treatment. And that's what's really scary about it. In talking with Zack Martin, I talked to him about the emotional roller coaster of these past several days, and he talked about how humbled he was to get the nomination for Walter Payton Man of the Year, but then at the same time to kind of have his football world come to a screeching halt. And I mean, this is a 9-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler who used to be, and for so many years, he was the Iron Man of this team. So while everyone else would battle an injury here or there, you could always count on Zack Martin to be on the field. Like I wrote in the article after I spoke with him, it would take an act of Congress to get this man to miss a single rep, let alone a series, let alone a game, let alone multiple games. But when you look at his past couple of seasons, you started to see some fractures in the armor physically. And then this season, we all were talking about it. He was not playing up to the Zack Martin standard. And we kind of attributed it to the fact that, he has been in the game for a decade. But then in speaking with him, he revealed something that no one knew, which was that this ankle situation has been troubling him for years is the way he put it. Years is the way he put it. And that makes it appear more of a degenerative condition, which, as far as his future is concerned, we asked him outright, what does this mean for the future? And he said this is not the time for that discussion, rightfully so, because he's frustrated, he's disappointed, he's in poor health at the moment. He said he wants to get healthy before he makes any kind of decision and have that conversation with the Cowboys and his family. But that's going to be a very difficult conversation for him to have, because on one note, he doesn't want to go out on his shield like this.
No.
But on the other note, on the other note, your body doesn't really care how you want to go out. It's going to tell you how you're going out. So that's why he's kind of had those conversations with Travis Frederick already, like you said yesterday, to try to, see what the writing on the wall says and try to come to terms with maybe we have seen the last of Zack Martin, but we won't know for a few more months, though.
You talked about the standard, right, that you play up to for Zack Martin. I want to read some Zack stats courtesy of Bobby Bell, which is just unreal when you go look at this thing.
Fantastic tweet. Yeah, I saw that.
Shouts out to Bobby. Listen to this, y'all. Zack Martin has as many first-team All-Pro selections in his career, 7, as he does accepted holding penalties. We usually hear that one, but these other ones are unbelievable. Zack Martin is one of 4 offensive linemen post-merger to make the Pro Bowl in each of his first 6 seasons. He was the first ever guard to do it. In the last 6 years and 17 days, Zack Martin has been called for one full start penalty on the road, and he has 1 holding penalty since CD Lamb was drafted. Wow.
Crazy. We're just going to go ahead and say what everybody already knows. The Mount Rushmore of NFL guards, especially when it comes to the Cowboys, for Dallas, there are 2.
Yep.
There's Larry Allen and there's Zack Martin, and then everybody else is everybody else. Okay? That's an air that will probably never be achieved again for multiple generations. So if you being that we are blessed to have witnessed Zack Martin and Travis Frederick and Tyron Smith and those guys playing together, we are quite literally seeing the end of an era. And again, I don't know if this is going to be it for Zack Martin, but even if 2025 is the end for Zack Martin, the fact is the end is near. And all we can do is be happy that we were able to witness it. I told him yesterday after the cameras went off, I literally stopped him short, and I was like, hey, man, I just want to say thank you for being such a freaking badass, and thank you for everything you've done for the fans and for this team. And you're one of one. There will not be another one like you. And he just kind of smiled with the big Zack Martin smile, and he closed his eyes for a second, kind of reflecting on it. He was like, thank you, man. And I was like, just heart to heart. And really that was emotional for me because, we are also, as much as I cover the team, and I'm also a fan of the team, right? And I can play it right down the middle because that's what the science is. But in that moment, once the cameras went off, the reporter in me went off, turned off, and I was just the fan that remembers watching Zack Martin get drafted instead of Johnny Manziel, watching all the blowback that the team got because they chose Zack Martin instead of Johnny Manziel, watching what Zack Martin became immediately as early as year 1 and then continued to elevate, and being able to witness his entire career and all of the excellence that he was able to provide, but then also for it to hit me that this is another future Hall of Famer that has to walk away, that will likely walk away without a Super Bowl ring. It's rough, man. But football is going to football, I guess.
Very well said, Pat. And just like you said, football is going to football. It moves on without you, and right away, and you hate to say it, but right away you're thinking about, okay, how do the Cowboys replace Zack Martin? And the one guy who's going to get an opportunity to plant his flag, per se, with the whole planting flag situation going on in college, the first guy.
Pepper spray, though. No pepper spray.
You try to pepper spray this man, he mess around and just drink it and come right after your ass. Stop playing. But Brock Hoffman has the first opportunity to kind of plant his flag to replace Zack Martin. And for the first time in his career, Pat, he will have a chance to start consecutively, right? Because when you look at Brock Hoffman over the first 3 years here in Dallas, it's a sporadic start here, a sporadic series here, maybe 2 starts here, then right. So for me, he has a chance to show guys like me who I've constantly said, hey man, I would love to have a Brock Hoffman on his team. I think he's a quality reserve guy. He's versatile. He can get thrown in the fire, adapt, adjust, and fight. I love it, right? But I said, I don't know if he's a 17-game starter for 3-4 years type of guy, so I'm looking for an upgrade. Well, now he has an opportunity to start 8 straight games to showcase that, hey, I can be the guy. What say you, Pat?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Patrick Walker, and I am the advocate of Brock Hoffman. let me tell you about this young man. This is, like you said, everything you said, but
That's
also
great.
put in perspective. This also put in perspective, folks. This is a guy in Brock Hoffman who he's very much the lunch pail guy. He goes to work. He's blue collar. He has the fire burning in his belly. He comes into this training camp, this year's training camp. He's the lead at the center position. Gets kind of beat out by Cooper Beebe, a rookie transitioning to center. Does he take that on the chin and fall back into the ropes? No. He just keeps on swinging, looking for an opportunity. Everybody thought, including myself, that T.J. Bass was going to be the successor to Zack Martin whenever Zack Martin called it a career. Brock Hoffman said, nah! Brock Hoffman comes in, beats out T.J. Bass for right guard after taking the majority of his training camp reps at center. And now you're also seeing a different demeanor when Brock Hoffman is in the game. And obviously Zack Martin is Zack Martin, so no comparison there. But in speaking about Brock Hoffman, this is a guy who he's walking that fine line between getting a penalty, not getting a penalty. Are you mad at him because he drew that flag? Are you not mad at him because he did draw that flag? Or he got close to drawing the flag and he knows better supposedly? He's a bully. He's a bully. Right? You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Travis Frederick as far as demeanor goes. Fredbeard is so calm and demure, if you will, off of the field, right? Might not say 10 words strung together. But, man, when that ball is snapped, he is such an animal. And we've been looking for at center, prior to Cooper Beebe, that fiery guy on the offensive line, and we were kind of upset that Tyler Biadasz, he had some of that in him, but not like Brock has it. No. So when you talk about the demeanor, when you talk about the work ethic, and then you talk about even in limited reps, look at his numbers. He's not allowing pressures. He's not allowing sacks. Zack Martin was struggling because he had not one bad ankle, but two bad ankles and a bad back and a bad shoulder. So there were some pressure issues up front.
Yeah.
Brock Hoffman comes into play. Suddenly Cooper Rush has time. He has time back there. Suddenly, the run lanes are there for Rico Dowdle. And also shouts out to Terrence Steele because he has definitely leveled up as well over the past 2 or 3 games. But Brock Hoffman, he's working, speaking of Terrence Steele, he's working in tandem very well, combo blocks with Steele, combo blocks with Cooper Beebe. And I just love everything Brock Hoffman does. So like you said, this is an opportunity. As we have this conversation, if you're asking me, no C, is Brock Hoffman the starter? Is he a 17-game guy in 2025 going forward? My answer to you is I see signs of it, but he has to put the pedal to the floor and continue to show me that over the remainder of this season before I can commit to it. But I see the signs, and I like what I'm seeing.
Either way, I said this many different times. You want this guy in your O-line room. I don't want him to walk away here. I think he like I said, he's a guy that if you have to throw him in the fire, he's shown that he can do it. So if you don't bring him back as a starter, say you sign a starter, you draft a starter, at least keep him on this roster to compete and keep that offensive line with some nasty in it. That's kind of how I see it.
And you're not wrong there, but what I will say is this. We've also seen that T.J. Bass is a gamer, right? So when you look at the combination of Hoffman and Bass at right guard in lieu of Zack Martin, you might be able to dodge having to take an offensive lineman again in the first round this year. Next year in April. You might be able to dodge that, but that'll be told over the next 5 games if you can do so. Because if you can dodge using a pick on another offensive lineman in April when that comes around, then that gives you the ability to use it on another position, and you can worry about the guard position down the road, because then you'll be locked in with Brock Hoffman and T.J. Bass at right guard, and then you got the All-Pro Tyler Smith at left guard. You've secured the situation at center with Cooper Beebe. Things will definitely be looking up for the interior of that offensive line.
You got Patrick No-C-Walker of .com joining us once again for the Scientific Method. Outside of the Zack Martin situation, the Cowboys injury report remains lengthy. I feel like it's going to be this way for the rest of the year. Pat, can you kind of give us some updates on these guys? And if you need, I can help you out because these are a lot of names to remember here.
No, I got it right in front of me. And you're right, it is a lot of names, and it's probably going to stay a lot of names. And unfortunately, based on how things are trending, names might be added after this week and after the following week and the subsequent week, because every week it seems like the Cowboys suffer 1 or 2 more injuries. Tyler Guyton, he did not participate in yesterday's practice with both the ankle and the knee injury. I spoke with him in the locker room yesterday off the record. Or I should say outside of the cameras, not necessarily off the record, but there were some off the record stuff, but that's none of y'all business. Love y'all, but that's none of y'all business. So he did tell me that it's a high ankle sprain. He's also dealing with an MCL sprain in his knee. He's still dealing with that shoulder issue, so he is really, really banged up. He says he expects to play on Monday. They do get the extra day. Of course, this is a mini bye, but I'm hard pressed to see that he can. Let's say I wouldn't be surprised if he sat on Monday. He's really banged up. CeeDee Lamb, shoulder, did not participate, but we spoke with CeeDee yesterday. He said he expects to play. That's also what McCarthy said. That's what Jerry and Steven are saying. I expect CeeDee Lamb will not miss Monday Night Football, especially after having the extra days of rest. Zack Martin will be on IR here shortly. Wanye Thomas, he's expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a meniscus injury. Not the worst-case scenario, but definitely a best case in that when you see him carted off, you were really concerned. But he should return before the season is over, fingers crossed there. Nick Vigil did not participate with a foot injury. It's not surprising. He hasn't practiced quite literally in probably a month now, but he's always on the game day roster. So there's that. A lot of rest going on. Obviously, Brandon Cooks resting. Malik Hooker, veteran rest day. Eric Kendricks, veteran rest day. Jordan Lewis, veteran rest day. Trayvon Diggs is the other headliner that you want to keep an eye on. He missed the last 2 games with those injuries. The knee is the most prevalent one right now. He was limited yesterday, but in having some conversations around the building, I don't get the feeling that he's going to be a go. Possibly, but I'd be surprised if he does play. Yeah. He's really trying to get through that knee issue, but it's responding to treatment, but not as quickly as they would like to see it responding. So he wants to play, but he has to get cleared before he can.
And so, they signed those 2 corners. That was an indication to me that something might not be right there.
Well, yeah, that's true when you talk about Delaney and Price, but at the same time, you lose Josh Butler to IR.
And Amani.
You lose Kalen Carson to IR. Right, so you lose Kalen Carson to IR. You lose Josh Butler to IR. Amani is trying to come back from IR, right. So his practice window was open. So even if Trayvon Diggs is good to go, you still have a depth issue, just period. If Trayvon Diggs cannot go, well, now you have a depth issue and a starter issue. So either way, you were going to need to add 1 or 2 bodies at defensive back. So that's why they added Price and Delaney. So that makes sense. So I say that to say still, seeing those 2 guys added to the practice squad doesn't, for me, immediately disqualify Trayvon Diggs from playing against the Bengals. I think those moves needed to happen anyway. But I am monitoring Diggs over the next couple of days to see what his probability is. But as we have the conversation right now on Friday morning, it sounds real iffy.
And the rest of these guys, you look at like Cooks and Malik and Kendricks and Jordan, those are just rest days. But Deron Bland, you love to see he's full. And to me, the most exciting one here is getting Jake Ferguson back, even though I know the tight ends have, done their due diligence and not their due diligence, but have done a good job in replacing Jake Ferguson. But I do think he adds more pop to the passing game. I think you're going to need that going up against this Bengals offense that makes you score.
No question. So with Jake Ferguson clearing concussion protocol yesterday, like you said, full participant in practice. He's actually been in good spirits this entire time, but his smile was even bigger yesterday out there taking some drills or doing some drills with Lunda Wells, tight ends coach, and then getting into some team practice reps. So he's back in a full capacity. Shouts out to Luke Schoonmaker, starting to turn that corner. Shouts out to Brevin Spann-Ford, starting to turn that corner. You can see those 2 guys starting to kind of adopt the fire and the work ethic that Jake Ferguson has established as the standard in that tight ends room. But make no doubt about it, as much as Schoonmaker and Brevin Spann-Ford are turning the corner, neither makes the impact or strikes a little bit of fear in the heart of the defense like Jake Ferguson does. So having him back on the field and what could potentially, hopefully it won't, but what could potentially turn into a shootout against Joe Burrow and company, you want all your weapons there. So now you got Brandon Cooks back, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Jake Ferguson back, and you have a leveled up young tight end crew in Spann-Ford and Schoonmaker. Rico is cooking up something nice. The blocking is up there. It's cooking up front with Brock Hoffman now in the mix. So things are looking up. Things are definitely looking up.
Yeah, you talked about that Bengals offense. They've scored 27 points 4 times in a row, whereas the Cowboys, they don't score 27 points almost ever. They finally scored 27 the other day. Obviously, they had the situation in Washington. where, these guys had a couple kickoff returns and whatnot. But this Cowboys offense doesn't really score a lot. But the defense, I think, and just want to ask you this question really, do you think this defense feels, I don't want to say the pressure, but the urgency, knowing they're going up against a Joe Burrow-led offense, to go out there and perform better than they have in the last month, even though they have played better, right? But this is Joe Burrow. This is Chase. This is Higgins, right? Chase Brown is playing well back there. This is one of the best offenses they will have seen all year. Is there a bit of a sense of urgency with that defense in that locker room?
I don't think the urgency is increased by the fact they're playing Joe Burrow and company. I think the urgency has been increased by the fact that they played so poorly for the majority of the season. And now that the playoffs are so out of reach statistically, they're really playing fast, loose, and free, and they're completely buying into Mike Zimmer's system. So you're getting guys back. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Tank is going to be back this week, but you're getting guys back. You got Micah Parsons in that combo with Demo playing out of their freaking mind. Mozzie is starting to turn that corner as well. Osa is starting to look like peak Osa again in the Zimmer system. Chauncey Golston is doing things. Carl Lawson has come alive. So that defensive front, Eric Kendricks as well, that defensive front is really starting to do some damage, and that's helping the secondary. So I think that as far as the sense of urgency is concerned, it's there, and it's already ratcheted up. But the fact that they happen to be going against Joe Burrow and that prolific offense on Monday Night Football, I don't know that it adds more than has already been added to them, because we've all beat the hell out of them over the past several weeks, and rightfully so, because they played very, very bad football. So now they're just trying to end on a high note, and what better note than to shut down an offense that essentially does whatever the hell it wants against defenses. So if you want to go out there on Monday Night Football and send a message, no better offense to do it against.
I 100% agree. Hey, Pat, appreciate you coming through once again for the Scientific Method. Let them know where to find your work at, man. I know you got the Science Lab dropping every week. I think it's a must-read.
Yeah, check out the .com, head to the mothership. This week's Science Lab dropped on yesterday. And I was curious as far as just how badly Murphy's Law is wrecking this team, and I started doing the numbers and the science on it, and just go check that out, because everyone knows how bad it's been as far as the injury front, but I don't think you understand the depth of it. And I didn't until I started going down that rabbit hole. So it's an interesting read. Check that out. And then Stargazing will happen today, drops this morning, as far as who you should keep an eye on against the Bengals.
My guy. Appreciate you, Pat.
Yes, sir. Talk to y'all later.
That is Patrick No C Walker. This week's Scientific Method. My guy always brings it. Okay. Y'all know how we do, man. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick little break. Come back. We have the Mailbag segment coming up. The most electrifying Mailbag segment. And maybe we'll hear from you if you want. 351-999-3787. You guys can reflect on the Zack Martin news, his career, what have you. Another great, like Pat said, likely played his last down in Dallas. Likely not getting a ring. And you just hate to see it, man. But that's kind of what it's been here with the Cowboys. But we'll be right back.
You're listening to A to Z Sports.
Do it live!
At some point, hoping to broadcast
In front of the millions
of Cowboys fans to bring you the real. But for now, strap up and here's your host, Skywalker Steele.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Yeah, man, you're absolutely right. Toxic injuries happen. Depth is important. Obviously, having a GM who helps build that is huge. Was watching the Lions game yesterday, and this happens a lot because you're ultra focused on your team. But I'm watching the Lions game, and I'm like, is that Jamal Adams blitzing and in the back? Is that Quan Alexander? Come to find out, the Detroit Lions are suffering a whole lot of injuries over there, and to the point they have to bring in a Jamal Adams and a Quan Alexander 3 days ago, and they're out there playing and helping these guys. Granted, it ended up being a shootout, and they got the victory 31-34. And, we talked about it yesterday. That was going to be a good game. You just knew it. Those are two of the top teams in the NFC. If you listened and hit that over, hit the higher, on Jared Goff, you would have won a couple dollars if you combined it with something else, because he threw for like 300 or something like that. So Lions remain at the top of the NFC, likely to win that division now. Not necessarily a chokehold on it yet. Not yet. They still got the Minnesota Vikings on their heels, but boy, you talk about a turnaround. I had mentioned this on, I believe, it was actually a comment when Vach and I believe it was Foots had a show, and I'm like, and if I was Dallas, I would obviously look at how the Lions have turned things around, although the Cowboys weren't in that bad of dire straits. But look at how they've built this team over the last 3 years, because I think that's the model, right? In my opinion, for the NFC, that should be the model, with the run game, the O-line, the scheme, aggressive defense. Not a whole bunch of high-end, top all-pro guys on that defense, but they coach and play a certain way. It's a philosophy. And I thought, to me, it changed in Detroit when they hired their general manager, and now you're seeing it all play out. So, and I know Dan Campbell gets laughed at as the walk-around head coach, but I tell you right now, something that will stick with me when I was talking to Jesse, and we talk about coaches and players playing for coaches, and he often says, organically, naturally, players will run to the wall. That's what they're designed to do. But a certain coach, players will run through the wall forward. And you can laugh and kiki at Dan Campbell all you want. Dan Campbell gets these guys ready to play. Dan Campbell, you can laugh at his decision-making or whatever, but they play for that guy. They run through the wall for that guy. And if I'm a Detroit fan, man, I'm excited about my coach, about my general manager, about my direction of the team. But we have no room here to talk in Dallas. That's all I'm saying. With that said, let's go ahead and get to this mailbag segment. We got a couple good ones, a fun one. Shouts out to the mailbag MVP, that is Aaron.
Time?
It is time for
The most electrifying move!
All right, scumbag, pay attention. It's time for mail call. You've got mail.
I actually want to save this one for you, Aaron. We'll get to that a little bit later. Let's actually talk about this question. This comes from Get Jacked over on Twitter. Let me make sure I got this. Boom. Bow. All right. Here's what we're going to do. Get Jacked over on Twitter says, say we end up having Mike McCarthy back next year or an older coach like Mike or Belichick. What are some OC options we should keep our eyes on? Also, if you want to throw in some O-line coaches, Sleepy Solari can go too. Okay. I'll play along with this one, Jack. And here's why I play along. Because if you're bringing back Mike McCarthy, there is no other offensive coordinator options, brother. Like that, it's going to be Mike McCarthy and likely Schottenheimer returning. I don't believe he's giving up offensive play calling duties, and he's not going to pivot his offense. So I don't think that's happening. Now, if you're bringing a different coach who's not calling the offense, or a defensive minded guy or walk around guy, I'll play along and give you some options that I went and took a look at. I've brought up Jared Johnson a few times over the last few weeks. He's the quarterback's coach in Houston. He worked in Minnesota for a season as well under Kevin O'Connell, but he's been under Bobby Slowick the last few years. He got a few offensive coordinator interviews last year. I believe Jared Johnson's on his way up. He'll likely call plays for somebody sooner rather than later. So he's a guy, right? David Garrardi, quarterback's coach in Kansas City. He's been with the Chiefs for a while. He's worked his way up. He's been there since 2018. He was a quality control guy, pass game specialist, and now he's the quarterback's coach. And obviously, if you're under Andy Reid, if you're working with Pat Mahomes, be nice to know, what do you know from a guy like Reid? Now, as a head coach, no, but as an offensive coordinator, could he be one of these guys that could be calling plays moving forward? Possibly. Clay Kubiak, pass game coordinator in San Francisco. Do we have to say anything else? His last name is Kubiak. He's in San Francisco. Those run game, pass game coordinator types, they usually go somewhere, call plays, and do a decent job at it. So Slowick's a guy, McDaniel's a guy. These guys have went elsewhere and have had success as offensive play callers. So Clay Kubiak also is another name. And then finally, Wes Phillips. Wes Phillips might be the most qualified guy here because he's been coaching longer than all these guys. He's right now with Minnesota as the offensive coordinator, but don't let that deter you, because one thing you have to understand when you're looking at these options, right? You can't look at an offensive coordinator that's calling plays to come to Dallas and be an offensive coordinator. That's just a linear move. Most teams don't even allow you to do that. They could do the same thing with Wes Phillips, but Wes Phillips does not call plays in Minnesota. He is the offensive coordinator by name, helps the game plans, and Kevin O'Connell calls the plays, and it's been that way since 2022. But Wes Phillips goes all the way back under O'Connell, McVay since 2014. He was on that crazy staff with the Washington Redskins where they had, McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan and McVay and that whole LaFleur, that whole situation, right? He's been working with or under a McVay or O'Connell for like a decade, but he hasn't called plays. So a guy like Wes Phillips, who is now, I think, has been under two quality schemes, two very good schemes, the Kevin O'Connell and the McVay Shanahan tree. He would be very interesting to bring in as an offensive coordinator / play caller if you're going in a different direction from a Mike McCarthy or even a Bill Belichick. I don't think Bill would bring in a guy like Wes. He'll probably bring in McDaniels, to be honest. So those are my names. There are many others, but Jared Johnson, David Garrardi, Clay Kubiak, and for me, amongst these guys, Wes Phillips would be a guy. By the way, Wes Phillips coached in Dallas for a little bit, I believe, when his dad was here. Wade Phillips, he was coaching on O-line or something like that for a few years. So Wes is familiar with Dallas. The Cowboys front office is familiar with Wes. I believe he's a name. He's a name to look at moving forward. So good question there, Jack. Appreciate it. Those are some names. There will be a lot more. We'll do more of this when it comes to head coach. Obviously, the OC will depend on the type of head coach you bring in. If you bring in a head coach that's calling plays, then some of these guys won't really matter. But if you're bringing in a walk-around guy, if you're bringing in a defensive guy, then yeah, these are some names to look out for. Let's get to question number 2. Question number 2 comes from Jeffrey here on YouTube. He says, with only one top 10 draft pick in the upcoming draft, who do you take? Running back, O-lineman, defense, or trading for a 66 Ford Mustang that needs 4 floor pans? So basically a captain trade back in this scenario. Okay. So who do you take with the top 10 pick? Well, the Cowboys, let's just say first round pick, because they may not have a top 10 pick. They may have the 12th pick, the 13th pick, the 15th pick, right? Let's just go there. Being that it's extremely early, and I personally think it does depend what you do in bringing guys back, what you do in free agency. Now, I know the Cowboys don't do a whole lot in free agency, but it should play a factor a little bit, because if you sign a starting guard or a starting this or that, then obviously you probably aren't going to take that player with said pick. But with all that aside, I'm still 10 toes down right now as we speak, defense or wide receiver, if we're going to be picking right in that top half. But I can see Dallas leaning on their first round success and saying, we got to replace Zack Martin. I ain't saying I'd do it. I'm not saying I'd do it, but I would not be shocked if Dallas did so. I don't think it'd be popular amongst Cowboy fans, but the Cowboys don't go with the popular pick. So I wouldn't rule out offensive linemen, although I would go a different direction. Like I said before, if I'm going to replace Zack, I'm going to do it with the guy in free agency. Or if they don't want to go that route, they'll probably break the pool stick and say TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, Nate Thomas, go win it. Now, depending where they're picking, I could also see them taking Genty. All right. And that's why he has running back here. The class is deep, though. This running back draft class is much better than the running back free agency class. Last year, the running back free agency class was ridiculous. So I don't think they're going to sign a running back in free agency that's going to stop them from taking it back. It shouldn't, but it's Dallas, right? So I could see them taking Genty and being like, yeah, that's our guy. But I think they could find a quality guy on day 2 as well. So I got defense, wide receiver as we speak right now, but easily could see the Cowboys going running back or O-lineman. Speaking of O-lineman, I forgot to... Let me go back a quick second. I forgot to talk to you guys because the subscriber or the follower asked about offensive linemen, right? O-line coaches. And I did have 2 names for the O-line coaches. I forgot to get at you. I talked about Lunda Wells. Lunda Wells being a guy that could replace Mike Solari. Sky, he's a tight ends coach. He was an offensive line guy for like 5 seasons in New York. Now you could say New York's O-line sucked. Fair enough. But he has enough respect for Dan Quinn to try to take him away from Dallas to be his offensive line coach in Washington. So I think, if they don't want to go outside the building too much, and Lunda Wells has already worked with a lot of these young guys because as a tight ends coach, you're usually working with the offensive line because a lot of the run game involves the tight ends, right? So I would look at Lunda Wells and say, hey, let's interview you for the offensive line coach. But then there's the other guy. TJ Pagnetti. He's the run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach in Philadelphia. Whoa, guys, the Eagles. I hear you. But he's a guy that's been coaching under Jeff Stoutland for like a decade. Since Jeff Stoutland got there, if I'm not mistaken. Now, he's had a couple different stints in and out of Philly, but he's been there for like 7-8 straight years now. And he's their run game specialist / assistant offensive line coach. And I'm not saying Jeff Stoutland is the McVay of, hey, if you touch Jeff Stoutland, you got to hire him. But I'd like to see if he's a guy that maybe Stoutland is rubbed off on and he can help out your young offensive line because, boy, you're not going to get Jeff Stoutland, who seems to be able to just plug anybody up in there and that Eagles offensive line just churns out quality guys. You're not getting Bill Callahan, right? You're not getting him here. So maybe you look for a young offensive line coach that you can keep around for as long as a Bill Callahan or a Jeff Stoutland. So you don't got to keep churning through. He's coach proof, right? Or you bring in you bring in a new coach and you're like, oh no, this guy's one of the best in the business. We don't really care who the coach is. He can stick around type. Just saying. But Lunda Wells, TJ Pagnetti, those are 2. What you'll probably get is the offensive coordinator or offensive coach, whoever brings in. He'll have a history with some guy, a la you saw what D'Amico Ryans did, right? D'Amico Ryans goes to Houston. He brings over a couple guys from San Francisco. It happens everywhere you go, right? These guys have assistant coaches under them they bring over. So you'll probably likely get that. But TJ Pagnetti, I think, is a very interesting name to look out for if he's looking to be a full-time offensive line coach. If not, there's other guys out there. I'd imagine they will interview Lunda Wells. And if they decide to go a different direction, though, if that new coach wants to bring Lunda back as tight ends coach, then Lunda will remain here. Mike Solari's old. His prom theme was the wheel. Good trade Zack Martin to the Niners. What does good trade Zack Martin to the Niners mean? First of all, Zack Martin is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. They're not going to pick up that $40 million tab. Are you saying good he's hurt? What are you saying good? Trip Aces, you be on some ish sometimes. What does that even mean? Because you can't trade him. Trade deadline's passed. He's likely going to be a free agent next year. So I don't know what that means. Paul said, I'd be happy if our O-line is decent next year. Feel like we have too many weak spots to fix in 1 year anyway. The O-line? I think a better offensive line coach and a better scheme, your offensive line will be fine. I don't think they're aided by the scheme. I don't think they're aided by the backs. I just don't. So I think there's enough for this offensive line to let your offense operate. And the reason why I say that is because I look around the league, man, there are only like a handful of top great offensive lines. The rest are pretty solid to average, below average offensive line. That's just the state of offensive line play. And I think if you're the Cowboys, you look at you got a Cooper Beebe who we think is going to be a pretty good stalwart up there. You got a Tyler Smith who is an All-Pro. I know we laugh at Terrence Steele as a pass guy, but he's one of the best run guys in the league at right tackle. We just need him not to get killed out there, even though he went through murder's row. And for Tyler Guyton, I think he'll be a better pro in year 2 than he'll be in year 1. I think there are pieces to work with, but I think you got to get a better coach in there and you got to get a better scheme in there. If you run this whole thing back, well, now it's just you hope and pray that they just get better organically, in my opinion. You hope and pray. All right, final question. Quick one today. Quick show today. This is the fun question that comes from A.A. Ron. Always giving us some stuff, man. Appreciate you, big dog. He says, obviously, if you had to switch a player from defense to offense, it would be Micah Parsons. But if you had to switch one player on offense to defense, who would it be and why? This is a great question, A.A. Ron, because we often talk about Micah playing any position because he quite literally has played on offense and was one of the best running backs in the country in high school. This is an easy one, though. Brock Hoffman going from playing offensive guard to defensive tackle. Doesn't he just fit the mold? Like, he just fit. He has the size. He's like a 6'3", 310 pounds or whatever. He can play nose tackle, 1 tech, 2 tech. Put him at defensive tackle, man. Let Brock Hoffman just be dirty. I think that's easy right there. Easy. But I want to hear some of what you guys have to say. Yep, I got 3 guys here. Brock Hoffman, easy, number 1. I got Jake Ferguson. He was a standout linebacker in high school, so that could work too. CD, the corner. I don't know, bro. I don't know. CD feel a little bit too. He get a little bit too diva-ish for me at that corner. But I guess he could be the Trayvon did. Oh, there's that. There's that. Yeah, easy answer, bro. Brock Hoffman says Oscar with the Jake Ferguson as honorable mention. I got one. I don't know why I feel like this, but I just feel like Jalen Tolbert could be a solid corner. I don't know. Like, nothing crazy, not flashy, just a reliable guy out there. Remember how Byron Jones was just reliable, right? Yeah, he made the All-Pro 1 year or what have you, but I ain't saying Jalen Tolbert be All-Pro corner, but he's got the size. I think he's got the feet. He's not a flashy, overly athletic guy. I just feel like he'd be a dependable dude out there. I don't know why. Just Jalen Tolbert, I think, could play corner better than CD could. I thought about Lipke at linebacker. I did. Lost in translation. We're going offense to defense, not defense to offense. Hey, Ike, I thought about what I could do with a Turpin. I don't even know if I could put Turpin at slot cornerback, but he's so goddamn little. He's so little. Cooper Rush, I say. Demo at running back? How about Demo at receiver? I 6'3". What'd he go? That's a big ass receiver. He's like 240 now, 235. But hey, man. We had a caller say we should move Oh, you remember that Toxic Tom? Yeah, we definitely had a caller that said move Gallimore to left guard. Boy, we had some callers, man. We had some callers. We're going lost in translation. You on the whole opposite side. We're going defenders to offense. Defenders. I'm sorry. Offensive players to defense. My bad. Offensive players to defense, not the other way around. My bad. McCarthy at nose tackle. Stop it. Mozzie at guard? I didn't even think about that. King Pablo says Mozzie at guard. Gotta work on that. Get off. So Law said Smith. Tyler Smith. What would you do with Tyler Smith? I guess he could play defensive tackle. Mike at tight end. If we're switching back again, if we're going defense to offense. Mike at running back's the easy one. I mean, I don't know if y'all know this. Go look up Micah Parsons at running back. That's the easiest answer on the other side of the ball. He'd be a ridiculous great running back. I was trying to think of Brevin Spanford, what to do with him. 6'8", 260. I think he could be a fantastic defensive end with that size. I don't know about defensive tackle though, Rockstar, but Smith that 3-tech. All good, Troy, all good. Ferguson that receiver. Ferguson that linebacker. He played linebacker in high school. Was a standout backer in high school. I think that's it. Mozzie at center. Our new Andre Garrard. That's a fun question though. I like it. JG says Demo would be nasty as a receiver. That's what I was thinking. Demo go 6'3"-ish. 235-ish. He moved like a gazelle. I like that. Lee said Ferg at DE linebacker. I like Ferg. Ferg has like a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think could work. BB as a 5-tech. He is nasty. Aubrey at safety. Fun question and appreciate that question. AA Ron definitely made me think a little bit there for sure. But I think the easiest answer here is Brock Hoffman at defensive tackle. All right, let's take a look if we got any super chats here. If I missed any, my apologies. Nope, we're good to go on this side of things. So today, I want to take a break, but breaking down the Cowboys against the Bengals, but don't get it twisted. We play Monday. So Monday, we'll pick that back up with our game day morning. Me and Jesse, we won't be live at Canvas this Sunday, but we will be there on Monday. So you can go either day if you want to go check out any of the NFL action from Sunday and obviously our game on Monday, where there's good vibes. Trust me, they will have something popping off on Sunday as well. Good energy, good people. Canvas got you locked at Canvas Sports and Social. Of course, if you can't make it out there and you still want to get your drink on, Specs has got you covered. The destination for your unbeatable selections of beer, wine, liquor, and finer foods. And don't you forget, they still have the maple pecan pie sale going on through December. So if you're a pecan pie lover or just a pie lover in general, head on over to Specs to not only get your liquor and your wine, but your finer foods, whether you're planning that party or just looking for the perfect bottle in general. Josh Ball to women's UFC is diabolical. I can't believe he's still on his team, by the way. But anyway, this guy at Mike No Sir. Y'all gonna stop trying to put me on the field. Put me in the booth. Let me be Will McClay's assistant. Let me work my way up. You know what I mean? Hey, appreciate y'all coming through on this Friday. I know not a long show, but it was still a jam-packed show. We had Pat come through, break it down for us, what's happening over there in the locker room with this sad news with Zack Martin likely done in Dallas and what we're going to do moving forward. Plus, gave us the feels inside that locker room with the Cowboys defense going up against this Joe Burrow offense. We're going to pick that back up on Monday. Maybe I'll get a couple, some guests coming in here to see what their thoughts are on that matchup. Interesting game, man. Interesting game because I do feel like if they win this one, they will definitely try to push for a playoff push depending what happens above them. Do I think that is a realistic chance of happening? Playoff push? No. But I do think this game is winnable if this defense can play out of its mind again. So I think it's going to take that. Because if they have to get into a shootout, I know that Bengals defense is terrible, but I've yet to see anything from the Cowboys offense to show that they can get into a shootout. So got a couple more days. I'm all over it. We'll talk more about it on Monday. With that said,
Push the goddamn button.
Push the goddamn button.
I'm going to push it, man. Appreciate you, AZ. Make sure on your way out you hit that like button and share this with your friend, family, and foe if they need a place to go for all things Cowboys. And of course, if they're looking for a morning show to get their Cowboy day started, we right here, man. Love y'all. Y'all be safe this weekend. Peace.